Pinewood Studios are the location for a new movie mystery. It's new tricks in half an hour. First on BBC One, are the net police coming for you?
Hello, I'm Jeremy Vine, and this is Panorama. The internet, where would we be without it? But we don't always want to pay for our fun.
The problem today, people are getting music free, and the big record companies, they don't invest like they did before.
If you're a persistent downloader, the government is threatening to cut you off.
This is the equivalent of going around and confiscating people's record players and then complaining that no one's buying records. It's totally self-defeating to do this.
And even if you're behaving, your family might not be.
They download music all the time.
And do you know how much of it is unlawful and how much of it is above board?
No idea.
The government is trying to protect the music, film and TV industries from all of us, or at least from those people who use the internet to download material illegally. A new law going through Parliament now will crack down on broadband pirates, and if somebody in your home is caught too many times, your internet connection could be slowed down and then even cut off. So what will that do to you and your family's web use? Radio 1's Joe Wiley reports.
At the Enemy Awards, where they're celebrating the best of British music. But behind the celebrations is an industry which is facing major challenges in the digital age. They, along with the rest of the creative industries, have been lobbying government for protection, and the government are pointing the finger at the millions of us they say are downloading music illegally. The figures are worrying. The record industry alone says it's losing £200 million a year, and 7 million of us are file sharing music unlawfully.
We're living in a very difficult place right now. An artist can take their work, someone puts it up on the internet, it's gone. Doesn't matter whether it's radio, TV, music or anything else. It's very difficult to invest money into a business that you'd think the work's all going to be given away for free very shortly thereafter.
It's harder and harder for a young band to get signed now because there's so many young bands and there's so much music free. Record shops are closing everywhere.
Every night I remember that evening, the way you looked when you said you were leaving, the way you cried as you turned to walk away.
When you create something, it's fair that you get paid for it. You know, if I was a baker and I baked bread, then I'd expect people to pay me for the bread.
And I'm a little bit lost without you.
Scouting for Girls. Their first album went platinum, and they have a growing fan base. Their lead singer is Roy Stride.
Every artist on a pop record label will spend a lot of money using some of the best studios and the best producers and the best mixers to try and give their fans the best that they can possibly do, and all this does cost a huge amount of money.
How does it affect you personally?
I fear for every single creative industry in the UK. I know loads of amazing talented artists and bands who should have record deals, but they don't because there are less opportunities now because there's less money going into the industry, so it's stifling that creativity.
The government thinks the answer is a new law, which would make it easier for entertainment companies to sue persistent downloaders. It could even lead to people being cut off from the web. So how would this affect ordinary households? Nikki and Paul Dambra have 4 kids. Seth, 16, Iona, 13, Jude, 12, and Posey, 4. The Dambras have a busy household and a busy Wi-Fi link.
They download music all the time.
And do you know how much of it is unlawful and how much of it is above board?
No idea.
They don't really have much idea about computers, really. They're a bit not very technical.
The children have a different relationship to music, and they just see it as something, a product that they can access via a computer.
Is it possible to police this when you've got this many children all in their bedrooms with their laptops?
There's no way we can do it, given your work laptop is
In her
taken
bedroom.
from wherever it's been left, and we find Iona's on it at 11 o'clock at night. Don't know what she's doing, and you're not aware that she's in her bedroom doing that.
This is IT sleuth Keith Cossenden. He normally investigates computers for criminal cases, but we've asked him to help Mum and Dad find out what the kids have been up to. We'll get those results later. Across Britain, it's the young who are the biggest offenders. One industry trade body, UK Music, says its research shows 61% of 14 to 24-year-olds download illegally. Students Steve, James, Owen and Laura are typical downloaders. They're all at university in Manchester.
I don't really know anyone who doesn't do it, to be honest, within my friends especially.
If anything, it's broadened my range of music, and I don't feel guilty about it. It's just made me enjoy it even more.
There's no repercussions. It's really easy just to click download something. There's no one telling that you've done something wrong.
I DJ a bit and I download a lot of music and I download a lot of software and stuff for university.
I can't remember the last time I bought a CD, actually. A long time ago.
And do you feel like you're doing anything wrong? Do you ever kind of have a niggle of guilt at all?
I probably should, but I find that it doesn't overly bother me that much.
It's another job for our expert Keith. Just how much illegal material have they got on their computers?
Steve's got a variety of files. There's some music. There's also downloads of TV series, only currently on the TV, certainly not commercially available in the UK as DVDs. There's films that are currently on at the cinema, and then there's just copies of DVDs as well.
Where do you get your films and your music from?
It's a website called the Pirate Bay. That pretty much deals with everything you could want, from music to films or anything. It's just there, isn't it? It's 2 clicks away, and it's not really affecting anyone if you do or you don't.
Yo, sweet, Yo.
So is file sharing a victimless crime? London rapper Sway feels strongly that it's not. He's even released a song asking fans to stop illegally downloading his material.
People don't want to pay for CDs. Not every other household's got PCs. They download on MP3s. People, please be reasonable. A few people may wise up to the fact that, you know what we're actually doing is wrong. Because, you know, if I was to ask my little brothers and you know, their whole community, if they download, they'll freely say yes, because they don't even believe that they're doing anything wrong.
And how does it affect you as an artist, as a person who's making music, when people do illegally download?
Well, as an independent artist, it can affect you a great deal, because at the end of the day, what you recoup is what you put back into the music. So if you're losing revenue from people illegally downloading, that can affect your creative process. How am I going to make my G's if you've got my album before the release? Quality's rubbish and there ain't no sleeves. Do you deem that feasible?
So the government's launched the Digital Economy Bill as an attempt to break our habit of swapping songs, film and videos for free across the World Wide Web.
What the bill will require is that people use their broadband responsibly. And just as, you know, if you're using electricity, you need to use it in lawful means, so with broadband. The new law means our internet use will be under far greater scrutiny. My home, like many in the UK, is awash with desktops, laptops, iPods and mobile phones, all accessing our Wi-Fi. With my name on the broadband accounts, the government will be making it my responsibility to ensure nobody unlawfully file shares. So, if someone starts downloading pirate material, what will happen? The rights owners will identify that somebody is unlawfully obtaining their content. They will be able to contact the internet service provider and say, please send a letter to this individual.
The first 2 letters should fundamentally be just trying to explain to people what they're doing and ask them to please stop doing it, and to point them towards the kind of services they can get. The plan is that when you're caught, your internet service provider, or ISP, will write you a letter. The more unlawful downloads, the sterner their tone. The third and final letter will be your last warning. If you infringe after that, the copyright owners can apply for your name and address, so they can sue you. If these measures don't solve the problem of Download Britain,
the government will be able to adopt the power to restrict people's broadband speed or even cut them off for a time. It's controversial, and for many artists, the power to cut their fans off from the internet is a measure too far. Dave Stewart, record producer and former Eurythmic, is against the bill.
That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard as a solution to tackle the state that the entertainment industry is collapsing. How are they ever in 1,000,000 years going to stop file sharing? I mean, who is going to come up with something that is as clever as the next hacker who comes up with the thing to crack it?
I don't want anyone cut off. I don't want anyone fined. I just want the industry to get together and for everyone to provide a really compelling solution which is going to work out best for the music industry, but also, most importantly, for the fans.
This is the equivalent of going around and confiscating people's record players and then complaining that no one's buying records. It's totally self-defeating to do this.
Back at the Darnborough family home, our expert Keith has found something interesting on the family computers.
There's a program here, BitTorrent, which is a piece of software that's used to download music, films.
Is this a surprise to you? Were you aware that these things were on the computer?
They're computer literate and we're not. I mean, obviously we use computers in our jobs and that kind of thing, but I wouldn't know how to do what they're doing. And I don't think they're not downloading porn or anything, so it's just music, so it seems to be okay.
Keith's going to carry on his investigations and compile a report on all the suspect material he's found. But it's already clear that if the children carry on like this, the family could have their broadband slowed down or even cut off for a while if Parliament decides to adopt the toughest powers.
If your broadband was throttled back, how would that affect you in your day-to-day living? Because say you work from home, how would that affect you?
Well, for me, I do two jobs, actually two part-time jobs, and I have to access my email on both jobs from home to see what's going on. So if it was restricted and I couldn't access attachments through the email, that would affect me massively.
Cutting off people's internet, even for a short time, is highly controversial. It's not just for entertainment. Many of us do banking, shopping, studying, even socialising via the web. It's so important to everyday life, the European Commission has defined internet access as a fundamental right. So is it fair to cut it off to protect the copyright of entertainment companies?
The government has solely looked at what the music and the film companies want, and they've just ignored the reality of the internet, and they've also ignored the reality of human rights. It just simply won't work.
Well, I don't think there's any human right to take content that isn't yours without anybody's permission.
Jeff Taylor speaks for the British phonographic industry, which represents the record labels.
Absolutely, we believe that human rights must be fully respected during this process. There'll be a full appeals process put in place to make sure that in the very unlikely event that somebody was wrongly identified, that can be dealt with in a proper way, ultimately before a court.
The bill has highlighted the divide between the record companies and some of the big internet service providers, like TalkTalk, which has released a video mocking previous attempts by the record industry to stop fans sharing music. The copyright holders claim the internet companies don't do enough to control downloads, while the ISPs object to restrictions on internet users.
At the end of the day, there is nothing that we can do. We provide a pipe onto the internet, and without turning off the whole internet, you can't stop people illegally file sharing.
I think it's a shame that they're taking such a kind of negative approach. Some other ISPs, like Virgin and Sky, are looking at moving into adding value for their customers by developing new music services, and we think that just trying to be a dumb pipe and pretending you have no responsibility for anything that happens on your network, firstly, we think it's morally wrong, but secondly, we also think it's unsustainable as a business model.
We're very happy to work with them to try and find other solutions. Our problem at the moment is that they focused all their effort on lobbying government and trying to lean on government to come up with this oppressive regime.
So if the Secretary of State tells you to cut someone off, will you do it?
If the Secretary of State requires us to cut somebody off, we will refuse to cut them off unless a court has actually taken the decision that that subscriber did something wrong and they are guilty.
The government says the lack of common ground has forced it to try and legislate.
We would have been delighted if the internet companies and the content companies had been able to reach an agreement about how this should be addressed. They haven't been able to.
Why is that?
My sense is there hasn't really been the the depth of discussion and debate and reflection that there ought to have been over quite a long period. And that's why government has had to get involved.
Some musicians oppose the bill. They say music benefits from an unregulated internet. One group concerned about the government's proposals is the Featured Artists Coalition. Nick Mason of Pink Floyd, Ed O'Brien of Radiohead, Mark Kelly of Marillion, Kate Nash, who used MySpace to launch her career, the singer Billy Bragg, and the man behind this tune, Hal Ritson of the Young Punks.
The new music industry might shape something different, and so you might find that a successful musician isn't somebody with a million cars and a mansion who's worldwide known. There might be someone with a loyal global fan base who makes a living, but they're not a superstar.
The coalition argues that artists will prosper if they embrace the opportunities of the internet.
My career started through file sharing because I put my songs up on MySpace. Somehow like a buzz was created just through the internet and file sharing. People would come to my gigs, and it was the labels then that came to me to sign me, and kind of that's how my career started.
If you can find 5,000 people anywhere in the world as well, because of the internet, that are willing to spend a tenner on you in the space of a year, you've got the basis of a career.
It says here that the unions will never learn.
To these artists, the internet is a bigger opportunity than a threat. They argue that musicians can be their own publishers and leave the record companies behind.
Please excuse me, I never meant to break your heart.
We didn't want to sign a new record deal, even though we had quite a few offers, mainly because we wanted the freedom to do what we wanted and when we wanted, So we decided to ask the fans through the internet to fund the recording of the record before we made it. It's very simple, and it worked really well for us. I mean, we've done that for 4 albums now.
Actually, the music industry is thriving. It's the record industry that is dying on its feet. That's the paradox here.
Other artists disagree. Tinchy Strider thinks the bill's opponents have forgotten how important a record company's money and support is to an aspiring young artist.
I guess they're at a situation where it doesn't matter to them. They've been through the stages of careers where everyone's bought their music and they're alright now, so I just don't understand where they're coming from. Obviously they're saving loads of money, so they're alright.
It's the same for pop, rock, indie, whatever it is, country music, soul music, classical music. You need the big machine behind you.
But opponents of the bill say the irony is that illegal downloading might actually be helping the entertainment industries. The think tank Demos found that people who unlawfully download music actually spend more on legitimate sales than those who only buy legally, almost twice as much per year.
I quite like having a CD collection anyway. I mean, I like having a retro copy of them, so if it's, like a good album, I just go to the shop and buy it. I mean, I probably buy more now, music-wise anyway.
42% of illegal downloaders are listening with a view to buy.
There are certain titles out there that I have watched from downloading off the internet, and because it's been that good, I've gone to see it in the cinema anyway, because I know the experience will be even better. So you could say in a way that it's, to a certain extent, been promotional.
Illegal downloaders spend an average of £77 a year on music. Those who download lawfully, only 44. Music fans spent nearly £1.4 billion on live music in 2008.
We still go to festivals and we really enjoy music, so I think it's a great way for individuals to broaden their musical taste, and therefore they're going to go and visit or go to see more bands.
I think there are some positive signs, so the fact that singles are obviously doing very well, even digital albums are showing some growth, but it's a fraction of what it should be because many more tracks are being illegally downloaded than are being paid for, and ultimately that's not sustainable. We need a sustainable ecology around music that allows investment in new bands, and that's what we're arguing for.
Whether the new bill is good for the creative industries or not, there is also concern about the technologies involved. Will they always identify the real pirates of cyberspace? The person who pays for the internet connection will be held responsible for illegal downloads from that address, unless they can show they've taken all reasonable steps to protect it from outside interference. And the really bad news? You might find yourself in trouble even though no one in your home has done anything wrong. Computer expert Keith showed me how easy it is for people to hack into your broadband through your Wi-Fi router. We're sat outside a student house and you're going to try and access their internet.
Yeah, that's right.
And you reckon that'll be easy?
Yeah, it'll be straightforward. Administrator access to the router is default. So therefore, I can go into the router, change the settings, and then we can access the internet.
Go on then.
There you go, on the screen there, we know that we're accessing a particular router. We can see where we can change the admin login and the admin password. So what we do is we basically change that to what I want it to be.
Yeah.
Go out to the router. We are now connecting to somebody else's internet illegally, and I can access away, and it'll be at their expense.
Okay, and you could be doing unlawful file sharing.
Absolutely.
For which they will be responsible.
Yeah.
We are paging Mr. Baxter, Mr. Jordan, and Mr. Simon to proceed to boarding gate 38 immediately.
Someone downloaded this German techno tune on David Pomfret's internet connection. But he says it wasn't him. Under existing law, he got a series of legal letters from the people who own the copyright.
Out of the blue, wasn't expecting it, opened the letter, and it was basically immediately asking me to pay, I think it was £1,000, which, my heart sort of like hit me boots.
Carol Spindler was also accused of downloading the same tune.
You're made to feel like a criminal every time you receive a letter. It's, you have done this, you haven't proved that you haven't done it, or that it hasn't happened on your connection, so you are to blame for it.
And I just find it very frightening that somebody could find me guilty on so little evidence. Could you imagine going to court saying, we're doing you for a speed camera, but we haven't got a picture of your car? And to me, it's the equivalent of that.
And there's another problem. The new law depends on the entertainment companies tracking downloaders via their computer's IP address, which acts like a fingerprint when you go to any websites. But could you get round that? Dr. Richard Clayton is an expert on computer security and advises the House of Lords. So is the Digital Economy Bill a workable proposition in your eyes?
I really don't think so, because if people are going to find their internet is cut off because people can find out who they are, then they will move immediately to systems where it's not possible to find out who they are.
The big sources of illegal songs and movies are websites like Pirate Bay, BitTorrent and LimeWire. When you start downloading through one of them, your computer's IP address is logged, and that makes you vulnerable.
We take a file here, and we can see that this file is being shared from a machine in West Sussex.
Yep.
And it's currently being read by a machine in Cambridge, Cambridgeshire, and therefore the record company could take that IP address, could go to the ISP, and they could say, who is this person? Now, if you don't want to be caught in this way, then you can use some sort of anonymity system.
Anonymity systems work by creating a chain of internet users all over the world. If you file share like this, your IP address will be hidden somewhere in the chain. It will look like the song or the movie was downloaded by someone else entirely.
We should now notice, yes, it's no longer being shared with a machine in Cambridge, it's now being shared with a machine in Germany. And what's more, that machine in Germany is not keeping any records, so if the record company saw that it was being shared by a machine in Germany, they could go off to the machine in Germany and say, tell us who is behind here. The machine in Germany would say, I'm terribly sorry, I don't know. As soon as it's necessary to have a system like this to do file sharing, we will see large-scale systems like this growing up. You don't have to understand all the anonymity, all the cryptography which is going on. All you have to do is check a few boxes and it will magically work for you.
So, we've been monitoring our house, our family in Manchester, and this is the download report. This is the evidence that shows what exactly they've been doing over the last week or so. And it's quite astonishing stuff, actually. The family, particularly, have been consuming loads and loads of music. A lot of them really new bands, kind of stuff that I'm really into. The odd back catalogue as well of entire bands, history, musical history. So it's kind of quite shocking stuff. And under the Digital Economy Bill, this report, this evidence, could lead to them being sent letters, and then in the extreme, they will be actually cut off the internet. So I'm going to get a train now, I'm going to go to Manchester, and I'm going to have a word with them. There's been a lot of music downloading going on unlawfully. So who would be responsible for that?
That'd be Seth.
Blimey, so you've been really busy. It's all you. It's not the mum and dad at all, it's all you.
It's me.
And is this an average week for you, do you think?
Not an average week, but I went kind of a bit crazy because it's been half term, so I've had a lot of free time.
So why didn't you go to iTunes or any kind of legal sites?
Because it costs money, essentially.
How would you pay for it if you were going to go to iTunes?
Well, I'd have to use my parents' credit card, and that's their money that I'm spending on buying music. And if I buy a song there, it could be like 79p, and I think that's a bit ridiculous for a song.
So then you're kind of giving them no alternative then. If they haven't got any money, then you're kind of forcing them to go and...
Well, they have got their own money, but they choose not to use it for iTunes.
So that's typical of, say, most teenagers in the country. And if he is, and the way that he accesses music and uses a computer, then I think this argument or the debate that we're having has already been lost.
Meanwhile, Panorama has imposed a heavily slowed down internet connection on our students. It's one of the penalties that the government is considering to stop downloading. How would they cope, and will this punishment work?
I'm just trying to download some TV show and it's just pretty much stopped. It's so slow.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. It normally take like half an hour probably to get that sort of file.
Now it's taking 13 weeks, 2 days. If we have to do work at home, we can't do it at the minute. I think their plan was that they were going to throttle you back, and if you continue to download, they would cut you off. But essentially we have already been cut off with this throttle back, and you can't do anything. You can't even really open emails at the minute, and it would be incredibly frustrating if it did happen.
I don't see how this is a way forward. I mean, obviously it stops people from downloading, but then it kind of just ruins your life.
With cross-party support for most clauses, the bill is likely to become law before the election. The question is whether this will save Britain's creative industries or whether it will undermine free internet use and therefore the very innovation on which those industries depend.
This is literally the last roll of the dice for the music business, okay? And people have to take responsibility, and they have to decide whether, if they want to download music for free, then they're going to harm the future of music.
It's a waste of everyone's time and money to have a debate about a legal crackdown which would just alienate fans from the musicians that they should be supporting, and would cost money and actually wouldn't work.
We do need that kind of breathing space to allow the investment to take place, not only in terms of financially from the industry itself, but also from the artists to get some sort of security that they can get paid for their talent and ability, an extraordinary, wonderful thing they make for us called music.
Quite how the new law will work in practice remains to be seen, but if you go to our website, we've got some tips there on how you can download and stay on the right side of the law. We'll be back next Wednesday at 9 with a special programme about chocolate. It's the nation's favourite treat, but do we know where our Easter eggs come from? We discover the kids who harvest our cocoa, but who've never tasted chocolate. That's Chocolate, the Bitter Truth, next Wednesday at 9.